number one, we're all here as a result of different actions that took place in history. And the story I want to tell you, when Coach Simmons actually left Cal Poly, Coach Simmons actually recommended Coach Miller for the position. And so when they did a search at Cal Poly, Dr. Vic Buccola basically got 3 candidates back. And guess who was third place? Coach Steve Miller. Dr. Vic basically said, why is this guy third place? He said, well, he's not had any college experience, but he's a real strong personality and he just might give you some challenges. Of which Dr. Buccola said, if I can't handle this guy, I don't deserve to be the athletic director at Cal Poly. So he's on the line right now, and I wanted to say we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my dad's best friend, boxing buddy, Dr. Vic Buccola. So Dr. Buccola, I don't know if you want to just say a minute or two. We got a tight schedule. Do you have something that you'd like to say?
Well, Peter, you kind of said it all. You took my sayings and said it for me. But I remember that I wanted Steve Miller as a track coach, and if I couldn't handle him, he would have my job. That was something that we said at the time, and that was Steve Simmons that told me that, and I think he remembers that. But I was really pleased with all the athletes that Steve brought in. They brought a lot of recognition to Cal Poly, and we're still getting recognition from these athletes.
So anyway, let me do one thing. I'm hoping everybody can hear me. I have one more thing just to kind of set the pace here. And if I could just share my...
Taken from relationships is overwhelming. And I have to remind myself from time to time when I get down or when I feel bad about something, of how fortunate I am, and my children were a big part of that, and my wife as well, a big part of it, and the teams and the athletes, even though a lot of them may not know how much they meant to me, each of them in their own way, and I mean literally, each of them in their own way had a major effect on me that I took something away from all of it, every interaction.
It's the rocket up there.
Welcome, everyone. I just wanted to say briefly that this was a major undertaking, and I want to give a lot of credit to Pete, to Terry Bauer, and to Bart Williams, because without the 3 of them, this event would not have happened. It didn't happen by smoke and mirrors, folks. This was a yeoman effort, and they put in the charge. So in weeks to come, if you want to reach out and thank them, please feel free to do so. Danny Aldridge, I saw your...
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Thumbs up?
Yes.
Perfect,
Yep.
Perfect. So I was honored to be asked to speak. Obviously, Coach Miller meant a lot to me and all of us. And to me, the best thing that he was, as far as being, just a technically great coach as well, he motivated us all to be better people, better athletes, better teammates. And I think that's what led to the success of our program, is that we all respected and appreciated what each other was doing. There was stars on our teams, but we all saw each other as stars. We all needed each other to motivate ourselves through what Coach Miller taught us to be better. So I got a few moments that I took away from the program. I couldn't use them all. Like 90% of them I couldn't use because they said this had to be PG. So I couldn't do that. So I had to go with the more civil stories here. So you know what? Let's just start with one. The first time that I really got some motivation from Coach Miller in a strange way, we were down on the lower track like we were back in the days on the dirt lower track, and we were doing interval workout. This is right before cross country nationals, and it was a kick-ass workout. I mean, we were hammering this thing. We were tired. We were pushing each other around the track, and all of a sudden, a fight breaks out. This huge fight among our guys. They're in the middle of the field. Guys are throwing. Well, they're throwing cross country punches. So let's face it, little cross country skinny arm guys. Not much damage, but and you know, me being more of a lover than a fighter, I run over to Coach Miller and I go, "Are you gonna stop this?" And he goes, "Nope." I go, "Why?" He goes, "I think we're ready." And what did we go on do? That was our first national championship. So he knew we had the spirit in us right there to go do some incredible things a week later at the championship meet. So that was one of them. Secondly, was you know what I really loved about Coach was the hugs. And because the hugs were genuine. And when you did something great and you finished a race, I really looked forward to one of these big bear hugs that I would get. I remember thinking at the line at the Nationals at Riverside, one of the few thoughts that went through my head was, you know, I can't wait to finish this race. Not because I couldn't wait to get over the pain, but was that I was going to get this big bear hug from Coach Miller when I finished. I knew it would be genuine. I knew he appreciated everything we did and what we put on the line every time we went out and raced. And that stems from what he brought to the program, this confidence to give us to do what we needed to do to be champions. So again, that's another thing that, plus the alternative, if I didn't run well and didn't get the bear hug, the consequences, I'll leave that up to your imagination. What might occur.
Okay, Danny, thank you very much. That was insightful and interesting, especially part about the fight. Manny Bautista, you're up.
All right, nice to see
Jeff
all of
Small,
you.
you're next.
Good. Nice to see everybody. Y'all used to be such good-looking guys. Now you're just good-looking guys. So I was challenged by Pete to tell a Coach Miller story, and I have, like Danny, several of them. I want to just kind of say that this story relates to my coaching. I went on to coach. I followed Coach Miller to K-State. As a lot of you that coached, your athletes were raised on Millerisms. Maybe some of your kids were raised on Millerisms, but those of you that are distance runners will remember this. Those of you that weren't used to watch this. But if you can remember when we were on the track, right before we were going to start, Coach Miller would walk over to that gate by the end of the track and open the gate, kind of made a little theatrical thing with it. And then he'd get us all together and he'd tell us what we had to run, gave us our splits, told us what we needed to do. And then he would say, if you can't make these times, just take your butt right out that gate and come back when you're in shape. We used to like that as long as it wasn't us. And this was usually around the 81 season, if I remember correctly. There was about 3 groups of us. And we used to just watch people get kicked out of practice. And, you know, he'd do it one of 3 ways. He wouldn't give you your time and you knew you had to leave, or he'd just point to the gate and you knew you had to leave. Or instead of giving you your time, he'd say things like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and you knew you had to leave. It was hilarious. It was funny. It was hilarious.
That was just wild.
Your distance runners are laughing at this. And you were gone. But if you could listen to him, sometimes he'd pull you over and chew you out. And it was one of 3 things. You're not making these times. Get out of here. The second one was, you're not earning your money. How much am I giving you? If you don't get better, I'm giving it to that guy. And my personal favorite was, get out of here. And when you go back to where you're from, whatever high school or junior college you're from, you tell those people that I'm not recruiting them, and it's your fault. And I thought that was hilarious until it was my turn, and he told me that I'm never recruiting anybody from Texas again, and it's your fault. And I just thought that was the funniest thing ever, and I used it all the time when I was coaching. And the best part about it was the next day, you were welcome back with open arms. And Coach Miller would usually say something like, hey, welcome back. Where were you yesterday? And all of us just start laughing at each other. Coach, you're laughing at this. You remember that, right?
I remember it well. Yeah.
All the time when I was coaching, and I want to conclude by this is that, Coach Miller's he's touched us all. We all realize that. But he's touched people that he's never met. I have a whole list of athletes he's never met that went on to be very successful. The kid that coaches our school now, whose team won the state championship at cross country, was one of my boys, went to Cal Poly, was raised on Millerisms. And to show you how deep it runs, my last year of coaching, we were on a bus and some kid barely made it on the bus and some kid yells in the back, "It's about time you made it, because when the wheels are rolling, boy." I just looked up and laughed and went, God, if Coach could hear it, he raised us all well. So that's my 3 minutes.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Manny. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody who can leave their wife on a hotel because she didn't come on time
Right.
can leave an athlete for sure. So it was, I left Suzanne at Stanford. Yes, I remember that well. Oh, God, unbelievable.
Dave Albritton, I'm here.
Albritton. I said Danny Aldridge, Dave Albritton.
We live in the same town. He's a little
No,
bit.
don't mind me. I'm just having a moment. Go.
Listen, the story I got to tell is just what basically set my life up. It's it'll show you what Cal Poly meant to me, what Coach Miller meant to me, what my friends and fellow athletes meant to me. I met Coach Miller for the first time at the Stanford Invitational when I took Danny Aldridge down to meet with Coach Miller for, I think, the first or second time. They allowed me to kind of sit around and I listened to him talk. And Miller was his powerful self. You know, I learned what his vision was for Cal Poly. You know, the athletes he had: Bart Williams, Joe CACA. You know, incredible amounts of athletes there. Who he'd recruited. You know, he was talking about Mark Kent, Fred Harvey, and guys like that. Dan Aldridge. Soon to be Tim McDonald, another teammate of mine down there. So I knew where he was going. And by the time he was done talking, I was sold, man. I really wanted to go there. And I told him so. And he was encouraging, but he was also realistic. He kind of let me know the financial situation that Cal Poly was in. And, you know, the amount of money it went, and, you know, the kind of athletes. And so I left there, you know, hopeful, but, you know, I knew at that point that I kind of wasn't the athlete they were looking for. You know, may have had some talent. But at any rate, so we went on, and over the next few months, during the rest of the season, Miller would keep in touch with me, check with me. Hey, how's training going? Going good. Hey, you think about coming down? Yeah, I really am. I'm thinking about coming down. But he was really head up, and he really wanted me to get my application in. But at the same time, he was honest with me, and we were talking, and I could see the writing on the wall. I was hopeful, but you know, my parents couldn't afford to send me, and it just wasn't looking super good. But anyway, season went on. I finished up my eligibility at the JC and went back down for a third year. And like I said, Miller, he's a genuine guy. That's what I got out of him. Man, he's powerful, and he can be scary at times. But you know, if you talk to the guy for any length of time at all, you know he's genuine. So he was keeping in touch with me a little bit. And I remember that fateful day, the day after Christmas, December 26th, I got a phone call from Coach Miller. He goes, "Hey, are you coming down or what?" And I said, "Well, you know, Coach, probably not." I said, "Can't afford it. My parents can't afford to send me." And then he got his best mentor voice going, and the fatherly voice, and he goes, "No, you're coming down." And I said, "What?" He goes, "You're coming down." I said, "Coach," I said, "I haven't even been accepted to school yet." And he goes, "Listen, don't worry about school." He went on, told me he arranged to get me to the dorm. I was going to Heron Hall, and he arranged for a meal ticket and whatnot. And I just couldn't believe it. And so he goes, "So are you coming down or what?" And I said, "Well, yeah." He goes, "Okay, well, here's the deal. You got to be here in 4 days." And I said, "Well, 4 days?" He goes, "Well," he said, "I'll give you 6 days." He said, "School starts on the 6th of January. And this is the 26th of December. So I spent a couple of 4 or 5 days withdrawing from classes at the JC and taking a couple of early out.
Jani Johnson, are you there?
First of all, I want to say thank you to Dr. Buccola and Coach Simmons, because you were kind of my first mentors going into Cal Poly before Coach Miller came. And you were part of the reason why we got a women's team together. The story that I want to tell, and hi, Coach Miller, I'm really happy to see you. I wanted to tell you the story of the summer of 1978 when you took the men and women's team up to Lake Tahoe. And I don't know how you did it, but you got us a really nice condo each. The women's team with my future sister-in-law was in, the women were in, and you were with the guys. And the women ran 85 miles that week, and the men ran about 100 miles that week. And you started us off every morning with your at 7 a.m. run and blaring in the neighborhood to start us off on our run. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I remember it very well. I
And then we
remember it
hit
very well.
like 3 times a day. And so that was awesome fun. And I knew that we were in for it that season. And, you know, some of the other guys have talked about the grueling workouts. I mean, they would run us to Cuesta on our recovery days. And the women, I see Eileen there and Maggie, I see Greg. Like, I remember we just tried to like hang on so we wouldn't get lost up in the hills. So those were the crazy days. And I remember those fights. Schenkel used to be yelling at people if they weren't running hard enough.
Right.
So that season was amazing. And that season was the first time the women's team actually made it as a team to nationals. And so you flew us to where the men's team was racing D2 nationals in Arizona. We got to go there so that we could watch the men race. And do you remember the night that you had us all come in to your hotel room? And you had men and women's team in there, and it was as quiet as a mouse. And we were all like so nervous about this. And you gave a speech that, like Manny said, you know, those of us that went on to coach, I'll never forget that. Like, I probably could have like set an Olympic record that night, how fired up I was to run well that next day. And then the men won D2 nationals, and the women, we went on to Colorado Springs the next day. And we ended up cracking into the top 20 in the US and ran 11th. And I ran 3rd for our team that day behind the great team of Maggie and Kate Kais. And Eileen came along later. I mean, we had some great women that came on, but we were really the forefront. And mainly what I want to tell you is that you were so inspiring to all of us, and your energy and your sense of humor and your love of life just instilled, and I hope to inspire. I'm still teaching because I love it, and I hope to inspire people like you inspired us. So thank you.
Thank you, Jani. Matt Vukicevich, you there?
Yes, I am.
And Tim McDonald, you're next. Cue up.
Hey, I just have to say that picture, Manny, that you threw out there, I got a couple of comments. Randy, I don't know if Randy's on this call, but man, those white pants. That was classic stuff right there.
A long time ago. I mean,
That
what
was.
the heck? It was a long time ago.
So I'm going back to 1981, Macomb, Illinois. And since I was glad Jenny mentioned this speeches, because I remembered one in detail. So I'm just going to basically tell it to you. So we had a team meeting at the hotel that night, and we had all of us. There was probably 24 guys in one hotel room. And coach was addressing us, and he's going down the events, you know, and he's saying things like, hey, we got Pete in the decathlon, we got Ivan, steeple, we got Vernon, we got Pat Croft, Ron Waynes, David Tucker going to be jumping, all this kind of stuff. And then he kind of quiets down. He goes, and then we got this Nigerian guy, Joe Ciacia, in the hurdles. And we got this Mexican guy from the national team in race walking, Bautista. And he's going down the list, and you know, we got the throws. We got Brian Fall and Chris Sorensen, Rob Rowley, all these guys. Where aren't we going to score points, you know? And so, and he says, and who's going to beat Mark Kent in the 100 meters? And then he stopped, and he said, and you know what's cool about this? It's a little country day school in Central California that's going to win the national title. And we're getting fired up. And then he paused, you know, that kind of pause he gets when he knows he's going to make a big point. And he says, he started telling us about an interview he had with the press earlier that day. And he said one of the reporters asked him if there was any way that Cal Poly could possibly lose the meet. And Coach said, yes. And as he liked to say, the room got as quiet so you could hear a rat pee on cotton. I remember those. Days. Yeah. and he goes, yeah, we could lose if we don't show up.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah. What an error.
Just like Jani said, we were so fired up. I don't know how anybody slept that night.
Oh God, that's a great story, man.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. That brings back a lot of memories. Tim, are you there?
I am here, sir.
All right. You
Hello,
got
everyone.
it.
You're all looking great. Hard to believe, isn't it? That's a lot of years ago. So I've got another Coach Miller story about a speech that changed my life. And I'm sure those of you who hear this now that were there, it probably changed yours as well. But we were out running around on a nice spring day, everybody laughing and joking around. And Coach calls us all into some dingy old classroom. And Pete Godinez reminded me that he called it the woodshed. And Coach got us all down in there and he sat us down. And like he always did, when he walked in the room went completely silent. No one said a word out of respect and fear that they'll get slapped or whatever would happen. And so Coach starts off like he always did, gave us all accolades for how good we were and all the things we were going to do in life, and talked us up pretty well. And then he finished with the compliments, and the message kind of moved on to one that was a little more serious. And he said, there's a group of you in this room that are not living up to your potential and your commitment to this program. And that group knows who they are. And I'm telling you today, we're going to have this same meeting 3 weeks from now, and some of you won't be here. We're paying you a lot of money, back to the money piece. We're paying you a lot of money to be here. I expect a commitment. And then he had that patented silence and then said, gentlemen, this is not a developmental program. And everybody just sat there and had no way to even respond to. And so for me, that statement, I've used that throughout my life. I use it with employees, with colleagues, my children. And for me, that was one of the most poignant times that I can remember in my life. And it was due to Coach Steve Miller. He hit a bone in me that I remember to this day. It taught me commitment. It taught me how to really commit myself to something and understand what it takes to earn the kind of rewards that we were lucky enough as a group to experience. Not everybody in the world can say stuff like that, and we are extremely lucky.
Thanks, Tim. And just so you know, that those of you that are listening, that Tim actually called me the other day. I was on the way out to dinner, and he and I had probably a 20-minute conversation, and it was motivating to me, and it was exciting, and I want to thank you, Tim. That was a real kind gesture. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. I told this story to Coach, is that for the past 20 years, I've been looking for him. I felt like somebody chasing a ghost around the U.S., but I finally caught up with him through Dave Albritton first, and then Pete, and then I said, send me his contact information.
Coach Small, are you on the call?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, stop hiding. I don't know why you hiding. I've called you 3 or 4 times. Get on the call, brother. All right, go ahead, Jim.
All right, I'm on a bus going to Charlotte for a track meet, so it's coming in and out a little bit. But anyway, I want to share a story with everybody. My senior year in high school, we were going to the Providers Release Relays. It was a crappy April, typical Chicago weather, piss in the rain, piss in the ice. And we get on a bus to go to this meet, and Coach Miller's not on a bus. we asked Coach Poole, Coach Martin, Coach Soda, where's Coach Miller? And they said, oh, he's speaking at a clinic, you know. So we goes, okay, he did that. So we didn't think anything about it. We go to the meet, come home. It's late on a Sunday night, and the phone rings. And I answer it, and it's Coach Miller. And Coach Miller says, Jeff, if I ever got a college coaching job, would you want to go there? And I said, I'm there, Coach. Yep, I'm there. No doubt about it. I'm going. He goes, wait a minute. I haven't told you where it's at. So then he starts telling me where it's at. And, you know, I'll say, I'm there, Coach. I'm going to go. But as soon as I got off the phone, I got out to Rand McNally, which is a MAP, not a GPS. But I strolled down the coast, found San Luis Obispo, and I said, oh, damn, this is going to be a hell of a good time. But really, the guys in the Heights, we all knew exactly what was going to happen when we went out there. He was going to change that place, and we were going to kick some ass, and we were going to have a lot of fun doing it. So thanks, Coach, for everything, and it's great seeing all my old teammates and coaches. Good luck to everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Is Vernon Sallaz on the call? Vernon.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go.
Okay. Hey, listen, I want to go on the record as saying that I was never officially recruited by Coach Miller. And the reason is because of Pat Croft. I was at the University of Colorado with Pat. We had to leave the school due to finances from the school. So he calls Coach Miller, and who I apologize, I didn't know him at the time, you know, how big he was and still is. And if I recall, he said, yeah, go ahead, bring Vernon too. And I was riding Pat's coattails, which I was so impressed with. We get to school, he gets us set up. He goes, I got a place for you to stay. I was at the dorms. Is Dave Albritton there? You remember this, Dave? We slept on the floor of Heron Hall the first night. We were there. The train, I swear it was 3 a.m. Could have been 6, who knows? We thought it was going through our room, Pat and I. And I go, Pat, it's a good thing we won't have to live here in the future. I was wrong on that. So just the friendliness of just being there with everyone, Coach, was great. The characters there, from Dave, I think Jack Martin, to seeing everybody. That's one thing I remember. The second thing is that I appreciate you getting us into our, academic study, liberal studies for me, in about 3 days. We had 3 days. I think it was it Vivian? Does that sound correct? Or Evelyn? And we got into school 3 days later at redshirting. So I got to see 1980 in its full force, you know, all the great runners there. Like, I was just blessed to be able to see everybody there. And then in can you see me? Oh, gosh, you can't. Okay, can you see me now?
Yes.
Was I on mute the whole time? Okay, now
No, you weren't on mute, but nobody
the
complained about not seeing you. Though.
You didn't
So
get
I just want you to know that.
You didn't get the look. Oh my gosh. I got the Terry Bauer hairstyle. Looks good, right, Terry? So we got that going. Okay, anyway, the second thing I remember is the communication with Coach Miller, because I'll never forget, school was important to me and I was late. I don't know if you recall this, Coach Miller, late maybe 10 minutes at the track. You pulled me over to your office, which is, I think, by the steeplechase pit. And you said, Vernon, let me ask you something. Who's paying your scholarship? Is it that lab you were just at, or is it track and field? I go, track and field. So unless you have a big reason, come here first. And he was right. And I appreciate the communication, you know, that you did. I mean, that always sticks out of my mind. Just your true articulation that was honest, and it wasn't in a scary way. It was to the point. And the last thing I guess I want to say, because in a lot of time, is when you left, I remember you called us and you knew we couldn't go with you. I would have loved to, but we were already redshirted. And you passed the torch. I don't know if you realize that we didn't have a coach, but we had Vukicevich, Coach Vukicevich, Manny Bautista, Danny Aldridge, I think Ron Richardson, who basically helped us run the program. I don't know how we did it. That's another story. to get second place in nationals. So that spirit still carried on, which we still are, which is amazing. So you passed that torch even when you left, and I'll never forget that. So thank you, and thank you everybody. I'm so great to see everybody here.
Thank you, Vernon. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. Rob Casselman, are you on the call?
Okay, here I am. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Summer of 1974, 75, 76, I'm not sure. I was competing in Europe and staying at the apartment of a friend, a guy named Mark Winsenreid, who ran 880 for University of Wisconsin. And he wanted to, I was waiting to compete in the British 3As. And he asked me if I wanted to compete in a meet in Cardiff, Wales. I said, hey, this is better than training, I'll go. And he said, by the way, I have this sport touring business, and I'm coordinating this team from South Chicago. And so they're going to pick, the bus is going to go there. And sure enough, so I met this guy from Bloom High School named Steve Miller. And by the way, Mark and I competed in a 600, and I think James Patton rabbited us for 400 meters, just to sidelight. Anyway, in retrospect, I don't really remember much about that encounter, but a couple of years later, in the late summer in 76, I was watching the Montreal games, not competing there, unfortunately, but my dad and I were riding on a track and field news tour bus, and lo and behold, sitting right across from us was this high school coach, Steve Miller, and his beautiful wife. I mean, my dad kept, commenting about, God, what a beautiful lady that is. And
leave that alone, Rob.
Being the loquacious fellow he was, we got into a great conversation, and he told me, hey, I just taken this job at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And so we just decided, we'll stay in touch. I decided to end my, competitive career that summer. There was no professional money in those days, and Edwin Moses had just come in the event. So what the heck? I got a job back in the Midwest at Central Michigan University, and learned that in order to be a permanent hire there, I had to have a master's degree. So it was at kind of the end of the year that I realized that there wasn't any GA money left, but I had this telephone number for Steve Miller at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I called him up. I said, hey, you need some help coaching out there. By the way, do you have any money? He says, Rob, he says, I don't have any money, but I'd like to have you, and I'll try and make it, worth your while, if I can. And I really needed some help learning how to coach field events and so forth. I told him when I was going to arrive. It was, in late August or early September, something like that. And he said, I'll pick you up at the airport. But just so you know, the next day I'm bringing my team. We're leaving early in the morning to go up to South Lake Tahoe, where we're going to have a cross-country camp for about a week. And you are welcome to stay with me. Now, by this time, it was Steve and Suzanne, Claudine, and Christopher, who was probably under a year old. He had colic, and he was crying every night. We'd go to bed, he'd be crying. But we were in these nice condos, and like you say, he's playing music. Everybody was, having a great time. And we got back to San Luis Obispo after my first and last 100-mile week training with the cross-country team, because I had decided to continue competing and go in the 800 meters there. And Steve became my coach and really went out of his way, in terms of helping me professionally in my own coaching. I went on to coach another 15 years in college Pac-10 and Pac-12, or Big Ten and Pac-12 coaching. And, I look back on those times, and there's just so many stories, that come through my mind. But, it just blows me away to think that this guy really, he didn't know anything about me. Invites me into his, vacation cabin, where they're training. And so I can't, say enough about his generosity and, my gratitude for, all of our lives are affected by those people who help us along the way. You know, we literally stand on their shoulders. And so, Steve, you have some big damn shoulders. And I want to thank you publicly for, you know, everything that you did for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just have to tell one quick story about Rob. When I started coaching him, he was just moving to the 800 meters. And I don't remember the times exactly, but I remember he ran the first round of a race and he ran like 147.1 or 146.5 or whatever it was. And the next race he ran 146.4. And the next race he ran 146.3. So I told him, you know what, if you stay at Cal Poly for about 80 years, we can get you right to where you need to be as a world record holder. I said, because this is not going to work this way. You can't drop a 1/10 of a second every time you run. We're in trouble. So
incremental
not only did I help him in his career, I helped him get out of his career. So it was perfect. It was perfect. I had to tell that story because I think about it all the time. I remember that vividly. Oh,
okay.
God.
Coach Casselman, thank you very much. It was good to see you, Coach. I haven't seen you in a number of years, and I know a number of people on the call are very happy to see your face. You were an integral part of what we did. Steve Simmons, are you on the call?
Here, say yes.
Yes.
Okay. Coach?
Yes.
You want to say a few words?
I guess so. About what?
About your experiences leading up to asking Dr. Buccola to consider Steve Miller as the head track coach.
Yeah, I did. So Miller was a good guy, and I liked him. We used to drink and eat, and then drink some more, and we would try and pick a fight with one or two people from time to time, and then Vic Buccola was getting really. He didn't know what to do for a while, and we calmed down. And then Cal Poly became a pretty damn good school, and we had some good athletes, and I think we had 5, 6, 7 Olympians when I was coaching. How many?
It was quite a few. Clancy Edwards, Ronaldo Brown, Mohinder Gill.
Ronaldo Brown, Mohinder Gill.
Yeah.
And you look at those guys and what they did, the ass they kicked on a daily basis, they were good. They were grown-ups and they got after it, and some of them needed a little money. They got the money. And the ones I found out that some of our guys were taking care of paying the schoolwork for their family members and people that they would bring up that were in school. And then for me, it was my wife was she's sitting here next to me right now. My wife asked me when we first went to Cal Poly, she said, "You sure you want to do this? Because you're from Dayton, Ohio." And I was an All-American in Dayton and had done some things, and I'd been on the I made the Olympic team and this, that, and the other thing. And my wife is hitting me. What is it?
No, they just want you to tell about when Miller came.
No, he doesn't need to tell me. He doesn't need to say that. I will tell you, Steve Simmons and I went to Africa together.
Oh,
we were in a hotel room in Africa, and we roomed together for almost 6 weeks. And one day I'm laying in the room and I hear this loud scream, and it's Steve. He's in a shower, and he said, "There's a bug in here." And I said, "Really?" I said, "Just kill it." He said, "As soon as I get it off my shoulders and arms, I will." So it's like we were in Africa. We saw bugs that were the size of children. I mean, they were just unbelievable. But if it wasn't for Steve and Vic, I would never have been at Cal Poly. So I owe them both a great deal. And Steve and I have become great friends and been friends for 30 some years. And he's a man I dearly love.
Thank you, Coach Miller and Coach Simmons. Appreciate it. And Steve, I'm glad to see that Donna is there. And Donna has helped me in many situations. So Donna, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
The good thing about Miller and me were that
there were no rules for what we were doing for some of the things.
Okay.
That's not what this call is about. Steve.
Yeah. So, okay.
Oh,
Okay, so
yeah.
thank you, Coach Simmons.
Hey, here I am.
Oh, Ed Muehlbacher. Okay, go ahead, Ed.
Wow. Okay. I mean, geez, where do I want to go with this? Hey, I met Steve and you back in 1975 at Bloom High School. So hearing you guys and seeing your winning attitude and brought me to, to come out to California. And I appreciate everything Steve's done there. I think the big thing I want to talk about is, Steve, you always, track was a big part of it, but the discussions on how life and how it would approach life. And I've always looked at my track experience there and the completeness of the team that you built, and you heard your athletes talk about that, and how you mentioned, hey, how can I lose if unless we don't show up? And I use that as a springboard in speaking with my staff over the years that, we succeed as individuals. For instance, like, we have the sprinters, the distance runners, the weights, the throwers, the distant, all different groups. And so, but clearly, we coalesce and come together as a team. And you always inspired all of it. And so I would use that to say, look, we can succeed as an individual, but we need to look at the bigger picture and because all the individual successes build greater success, for the whole group. And so those are the things that I remember. Hey, if I had more time, I would talk about, our trip to Europe in '75 and
Right.
how you got us out of a little bit of trouble in France.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah. Jeff Small, I got a picture of him actually coming out of a building. I've dug that up, but I'm not going to bring that up here because, but I think those are things that I remember. And I remember seeing you off when you left in '82. Heading out of there, and it was always those inspiring discussions. And it starts with a little bit of track, but it goes into a life's message. And I think that's the key and all the success that you've had at Cal Poly, and also with your Bloom athletes. I saw that the tape.
All right,
there,
Ed.
so.
Look, we appreciate you getting on the call and sharing those words with us. All right, now we're going to turn this over to Coach Miller. He's going to have the final word in this, and then Pete's going to close it out. And before I turn it over to Coach Miller, I want to say this has been a valuable use of my time. I mean, I can personally say that this was a great experience for me, and I hope everyone on the call shared some of the same feelings that I have. Coach Miller?
Yeah, I don't know how many people will stay on the call or how many people leave, but I will tell you a couple of things that I really want you to know. Number one is you may not have felt during the time that you were there that that I either paid attention or knew about what you were doing or thought about you as an individual, and nothing could be farther from the truth. Every one of you, literally every one of you, had a great impact on me. I'm 77 years old now, and I'm way past the 30s and 40s when it was all about me, and then you guys were like actors in a play. It was different, but I learned more, and I was taught more about human spirit and about success and failure and what people wanted. And the reason that I did, and the reason that it was so important to me, which has come to me in the last several years, is that as a young man with two parents, my mother died when she was very young. And my father was a mechanic, and he worked really hard and never saw me compete in a sport ever. And obviously he since has passed away. I always knew how I would have liked to be treated. I always knew that I missed being treated a particular way or appreciated. So each one of you, every one of you, was a vehicle for me to try to treat you the way I always wanted to be treated. And each of you brought me something that was incredibly special. In addition to that, I would say, without becoming political, you know, we are living in a strange time in our country based on COVID, based on politics, based on a whole series of things, racial issues, social issues, et cetera. And our teams, with the diversity of the teams, with the diversity of personalities, the diversity of backgrounds and geographies, this country could have learned a lot from us. We did things together that people weren't doing at that time. And I will say that it was never about track and field. I know track and field was the platform, but it was really about each of us growing up and becoming men and women and getting out and sharing things and hopefully having a reflection and hopefully being able to teach people, or at least to give them options as to how you can become something special. I don't want to, you know, talk about anyone in particular because it's just too many things. But I remember Joe Fabrish, who probably thought that maybe he wasn't one of my guys because maybe he went to a little bit of a different drummer. And then, of course, he became much wealthier than all of us. Although I want to say now, Joe, that I'm much wealthier than you. But anyhow, the bottom line to this is that each of you in your own way, and I mean this, I can't express this enough. Each of you in your own way brought me so much joy and brought me so many things to think about. You helped me raise my family. My daughter, who's been at Nike for 30 years, is a senior executive there. Chris Miller, my son, just bought a $4.1 billion company. Chris has been in the secondary ticket business. He started StubHub. He did some things that were really interesting. And I can tell you that those kids, now 45 and 41, still talk about the days about Cal Poly and talk about a lot of you individually. And each in your own way did something that was absolutely glorious for me. And what it did was it allowed me to do things for other people. So as much as I may have taught you, you taught me every bit as much and more. Steve Simmons was an integral part of my life. Integral part of my life. I mean, Vic Buccola hiring me, meeting all of you and spending time. Even, I don't know if you remember the day that I stopped practice and I told us we had to look around and we saw the mountains and we saw how blue the sky was. I mean, I thought that Chicago and California were on two different planets. I thought they were in two different worlds. I just enjoyed it so much. So what I want you to do is two things, and then I'll stop. One is this: I appreciate that this has been about me, but the truth is it's about you, and it's about the fact that each of you have held on to some of the memories of other guys on the team and other women on the team. That to me is really important, because even though I may have been a catalyst of sorts, the truth is that you made it work. All I did was give a little direction and you made it work. And number two is that I think it's really, really important that you recognize that one person or a person can make a difference. And if you really think about it, you never can tell when a hug or a kiss or a I've got your back or a pat in the back or I care about you, you never can tell when that will change the trajectory of someone's life. So for me, there wasn't one of you. And I mentioned Craig Mandanis, but I don't know if he's on the call or not, because Craig was not one of the better athletes. He was not, one of our stars. But the reason I mentioned him is because he was just as important to me as so was everybody else. So there's not one of you, not one name that I have forgotten, not one person, not one interaction that has gone past me without it having a major effect on my life. Suzanne and I have been married 51 years. Claudine is now 40, I think she's 45. She has a daughter that's going to college. She's a national caliber volleyball player. Chris Miller lives in New Canaan, lived in London for several years, started a company. And as I said, he, the Walton family, and JP Morgan bought a company for $4 billion. And even he talks about the Cal Poly guys and talks about Dave Albritton scaring the shit out of him when he came with that snake hat during Halloween. And, you know, and Chris was never the same for years. I think he peed in bed until he was like 14. So it was Albritton, I've got you to thank for that. So it was a great experience. But again, you taught me much more than I taught you. And I hope that what you get out of this is remembering each other, because each of you rose the other person. And Ron and I have been friends for years and years and haven't seen each other. I know that you probably know this, but you know, I've had cancer twice in the last 5 years. I've been hospitalized for a long period of time, went bald, and had transfusions on a daily basis for the better part of a year. Was told that I wasn't going to make it in the second one. And then COVID, and then these, as I said, the social issues. It's a tough time for all of us. But we all have each other, which is incredibly, incredibly important. And I'm never going to forget that. And I don't want you to ever forget it either. And Ed, what you said relative to our conversations, if all I did was teach you how to run and jump, then I didn't teach you anything. If that's all you thought you learned, then you really didn't learn what you needed to learn to be better men and women. So I thank you for that.